Good morning, dear students. Today we will continue with the second type of analytical epidemiological studies, that is cohort studies. Now, today's contents are introduction, indications, types, elements of the cohort study, advantages, disadvantages, and differences between case control and cohort studies. Now, what is a cohort study? It is another type of analytical study which is usually undertaken to get additional evidence, that is either to support or to refuse the existence of an association between the suspected cause and outcome disease. Now if you ask, now how we can say this existence of an association? For example, when we say sugar consumption is related to dental caries occurrence. Now, before we start a cohort study, this should have been, we conduct a cohort study either to refuse or to accept that sugar is one of the causes of dental caries, or consumption of sugar will lead into dental caries. So this cohort study is also called as a prospective study, a longitudinal study, an incidence study, or a forward-looking study. Let's see the distinguishing features of these cohort studies. First and foremost is the cohorts are identified prior to the appearance of disease under investigation. So, unlike case control studies, here the disease is not happened. Second, the study groups are observed over a period of time, that is from the cause to effect. So to determine the frequency of disease happening among those group of people. Third, the study proceeds from forward, that is the study proceeds forward, that is from cause to effect or outcome we call it. Now this is a schematic diagram of cohort study where people are selected from the population who are without the disease, and then we are examining those who are exposed and who are not exposed, and occurrence of disease among the exposed and occurrence of disease among not exposed here. So disease is there, no disease among the same population. We are going to find out among the exposed and not exposed, whoever is having the disease, whoever is not having the disease. Now cohort is defined as a group of people who share a common characteristic or experience within the defined time period. This is a Viva question also, please try to understand. It is defined as a group of people who share a similar characteristics or who had a similar experience within the defined time period, like those who belong to similar occupations or similar exposure to drugs, or who have been working in a similar company, who are exposed to a similar pollutant. So these are all people who share a common characteristic. Now the comparison group may be from the general population, which the cohort is drawn, or it may be another cohort of persons thought to have had a little or no exposure to the cause which we are in question, but otherwise similar. That means these people should also be very similar except the cause which we are expecting to be the causative factor for that particular outcome. Indications of cohort studies. The first indication is when there is a good evidence of an association between exposure and disease as derived from the clinical observations and supported by descriptive and cohort studies. As I had told you the beginning, For example, when you say sugar consumption is related to dental caries, before we take up a cohort study, this hypothesis should have been framed after examination in a descriptive epidemiological study, and there should have been existence of this association by a case control study. Once these two have been done, then only this should go to the cohort study level. The second indication, when exposure is rare but the incidence among those exposed is common, that means is high, rather you can say. For example, exposure to radiation or X-rays we call it. Now exposure to radiation is not common in general population, but the people who are exposed are having their own medical complications. So that is called as exposure is rare but incidence of disease among those exposed is high. Third, when attrition of the study participants can be minimized, that is, this word attrition you should understand, where we are losing the follow-up of the patients or the cohort group whom we are following over a period of time. That means either people are migrating or people are not stable, they get transfers, they move out of the place, or they are not accessible for us to follow up. So what happens, the number of the people whom we are following up is coming down. That is called as attrition. So this attrition problem should be very minimal. Only then you can go for a cohort study. And lastly, ample funds are required. So when there are very good funding available, you can go for a cohort study. We will see how that funding is required later, because this is called as a prospective study. So there are certain considerations which should be taken into account when you are planning for a cohort study. So first and foremost is the cohorts must be free from the disease under study. Both the groups should be equally susceptible to the disease under study. See, in a case control study, I hope you remember that disease has already occurred. So you are going from disease to cause. That is why that is called as a retrospective study. This is a prospective study. Here, the cohorts are free from the disease under study. Now, both groups should be equally susceptible. Both comparison group and cohort group should be equally susceptible for the disease under study. And both should be comparable in all respects, in all aspects, which may influence the frequency of the disease. And lastly, the diagnostic and eligibility criteria of the disease must be defined beforehand. So we have to define the diagnostic criteria and eligibility criteria. I hope this also we have studied in case control studies. So it should be defined in advance. Now the types of cohort studies. The first and foremost is prospective cohort study, a retrospective cohort study, and third one is a combination of retrospective and prospective study. Now let us see what is a prospective cohort study. I'll give an example here for you to understand easily. We will see among the smokers how many can develop lung cancer. We will see. Now we are in 2020. We would like to know how many people or how good a smoking is causing lung cancer. So what we will do, if you are planning for a cohort study, now we will take up the children who are in a primary school, and we will follow them for 10 years so that they become adults and develop a smoking habit. And from then we will follow them for another 10 years to see the effect of smoking for 10 years. And we will find out how many of them have developed lung cancer or not. This is called as prospective study. That is, you are following up with the people or with the cohorts for that particular period of time, whichever you have defined in advance. Now let us see A retrospective cohort study. The similar way only we will see, but in a different pattern. Here, we have people whose details are available of their primary schooling. Now we are at 2020. So what we will do, we will go back 20 years. In 2000, we will get preliminary primary school data, whom has survived with all the things, whatever we have the criteria, eligibility criteria and diagnostic criteria. And then we will see how many of them had developed smoking habit after 10 years, that is in 2010. And from 2010 to 2020, we will follow up. And then we will see how many of them have developed lung cancer here. This is called as a retrospective cohort study. Now the combination can be selected 10 years back and following 10 years further. So that is a combination of retrospective and cohort study. Now let us see, we will move on to elements of a cohort study. The first one is selection of study subjects. Second one is obtaining data on exposure. Third one is selection of comparison groups, follow-up and analysis. So first one is selection of study subjects. These study subjects can be selected from the general population also, from a defined geographical area or administrative areas where these people are available. Now the exposed and both unexposed segments of the population should be representatives of the general population. Special groups. These may be selected groups or exposed groups that are readily available for the study. Now select groups, how this is. For example, professional groups like doctors, nurses, or medical staff, advocates, teachers, or government employees, or a particular college alumni. All these people, selected people. There is an advantage of these selected groups. Mainly, they are homogeneous, and second thing is they offer a easy follow-up for a prolonged period, because remember always cohort studies are prolonged studies. So you need lot of time period to follow up with them. So you should always look for very minimal attrition problems. So these select groups will provide that advantage for us to follow up with them. Now exposure groups, like if you are having a particular exposure you want to study, so those particular groups also you can take up. That is, if the exposure is rare, more economical procedure is to select a cohort of persons who were thought of experiencing that particular exposure. In other words, cohorts may be selected because of special exposure to physical, chemical, or other disease agents who are exposed. Now, if you want to find out people who are working in BD factory, or who are working in particular chemical factory, who are exposed to those particular chemicals, so you can find out from those exposure groups. This is called as exposure groups. So coming to the second element, that is obtaining data on exposure. It may be obtained directly from the cohort members through interviews or by mailed questionnaires. Second is, we review the records, that is dosage of radiation, kinds of surgery, or details of medical treatment received by these people. All the records that are available for those cohorts which we are studying. Now, medical examination or any particular investigations we have taken up, that is blood pressure, serum, ECG, all those things. This data can be obtained from these places also. And then lastly, environmental surveys. By these methods, we can collect the data on exposure. Now, information about the exposure should be collected in a very meaningful manner. Why? Because this should help us in classifying the cohort members, that according to whether or not they have exposed to the suspected factor or not. Because when we are studying that time itself, it should help us to identify them and classify them, they are exposed or not exposed. And if they are exposed, to what level of degree they are exposed. So that will help us in classifying the peoples easily in better way. So this is the way you should collect the information, and which will help us in various methods, the way which I have just told you from the previous records, like as I have explained. Along with the above, the basic demographic variables also should be collected, because that might also affect the frequency of disease under investigation. Let us see the third element, that is selection of comparison groups. Now these comparison groups can be internal comparison or external comparison. Now internal comparison can be according to the degree or level of exposure, and external comparisons can be smokers and non-smokers. Now if you see internal comparisons within, like suppose if we are saying as the previous example, smoking and lung cancer. Now you want to know how many people, how many cigarettes that person or particular group had smoked for how many years. That is internal comparison. Now external will be smokers and non-smokers. And third comparison can be with the general population rates. The limiting factor in using general population rates, that is the disadvantages of general population, will be non-availability of the population rates for the outcome required. Second, the difficulties of selecting the study and comparison groups which are representative of the exposed and non-exposed segments of general population. So the first one is they might not be available in the required rates for the outcomes to be meaningful. And then difficulties of selecting the study and comparison groups which are representative of the exposed and non-exposed segments. They should be having exposure and non-exposure segments. So it might be little difficult to get those particular people. Coming to the follow-up. This particular follow-up is done for a periodic medical examination of each member of the cohort, reviewing the hospital records and physician records, routine surveillance of the death records, and mailed questionnaires, telephonic calls, periodic home visits. These are preferred to be done on annual basis. So with this follow-up, we will get the required information on their exposure, and whatever the records are required from them, we can get the information to study the required duration of time. Thank you. With that, we will stop for today. Tomorrow, we will continue with the rest of the elements and advantages, disadvantages, and differences between case control and cohort studies. Please go through the textbook, and if you have any doubts, please get back to me. Thank you very much.